Hey, Falcons and NFL fans, welcome to another episode of NFL Jocks and Pigskins with Tom Pollen. I'm Dave Holcomb, Chris Smitherin producing the show behind the scenes. We've got another exciting episode today. Season's really
Bozo's excited. She can't stay still.
Right. Season's really getting close. Just a couple of weeks away now. The Falcons are going to be playing their final preseason game tomorrow night. We had several teams playing their final game of the preseason last night. So
and Wendy's had their final preseason game canceled.
Who did?
The Saints. They had to cancel.
Right.
And who were they playing? Who were they scheduled to play? Arizona. Arizona had to go back to Phoenix, and the Saints are left town and headed towards Dallas to practice at AT&T Stadium. So, yeah, that one, I don't think they're even going to make it up. So, they're done with their preseason. The Hurricane Ida is heading for New Orleans.
Right. Yeah. So the preseason wrapping up this weekend. We're going to preview the Falcons matchup with the Cleveland Browns tomorrow night and talk about the quarterback situation as well in Atlanta. A new backup quarterback behind Matt Ryan after A.J. McCarron suffered a knee injury in last week's preseason game.
Yes. Yeah, and I tell you, none of last week's game was good. And just having the injury coming out of it where you have your presumptive backup quarterback knocked out for the season, that didn't help matters any. Right. That game, you just burned a game tape. That's one of those where you don't, you put some, funny music behind it and watch it as a comedy. Monday when you go back to work, it's you don't even want to pay attention to what that game tape is going to show because it was terrible.
It was terrible. It really was. And we are going to pay a little bit of attention to it in today's show because I think that is putting greater emphasis on the Falcons playing well tomorrow night. We'll get to that in a couple of minutes. We're also fielding your fantasy questions. I bet a majority of your fantasy drafts are coming up in the next week. Labor Day is also a very popular draft time. So I think next week we're going to go very heavy fantasy football. But if you have a draft coming up before next Saturday and you have a question, feel free to ask us in the chat. Feel free to send us your Falcons or NFL comments as well. If you're watching live, tweet at us at TJ Pollen, at DM Holcomb. Don't forget to follow the show on Facebook. Like us there. Give us a like on the page or on our YouTube channel as well. Subscribe to the channel, Atlanta Sports Unlimited. A lot of great Atlanta sports content. The Braves back in the win column last night, held on against the San Francisco Giants. They've won 10 of the last 12. So it's an exciting time in Atlanta with the Braves and Falcons and Georgia starting up as well. Georgia taking on Clemson next weekend.
That's right. It's getting there. Everything's rolling now. This is the time of year when all sports just start getting rolling. And Atlanta doesn't have a hockey team anymore, so they're not looking forward to training camp. But other than that, it's moving. Everything, you got all the sports are hitting their climaxes at the same time. We got the kickoff coming up 2 weeks from last Thursday, and it's a fun time to be a sports fan.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I got to give a shout out to my guy Miguel Cabrera. I'm wearing his jersey today. He hit his 500th home run last Sunday.
Absolutely, you can't ignore that. I was surprised. That really ran under my radar because I went through most of the season without realizing that Cabrera was that close to 500. And because normally I'm on top of that kind of stuff when players are reaching those kind of milestones. But, great career. Maybe not the most – I don't know. He should get a lot more attention than what he gets because – the guy has been a stellar player for the Tigers for a long time with the Marlins before that.
Yeah.
And really deserves the attention that's shown to him. As a good guy, good player, and really happy to see him reach that milestone. First ballot Hall of Famer. He's definitely, going in first ballot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, I guess I've always felt like he's been given a lot of recognition, but I guess maybe that's just because he's always been one of my favorite players.
I don't think he gets the recognition around the league that he deserves.
You're probably right.
He hasn't helped that he's been down the last couple of seasons.
Yeah.
Age is starting to catch up with him, but I've never felt that he got the recognition around the league that he deserves.
I think he's honestly in the same tier as Albert Pujols. If
you're talking about
right-handed hitters of this era, it's Pujols and Miguel Cabrera to me are the two best, and I would throw Manny Ramirez in there with an asterisk because of his steroid use. But Cabrera is right up there. He's going to get 3,000 hits. Probably not this year. He's 41 away from.
Yeah, he's not going to make it this year.
Yeah, from 3,000, but he'll get that next year.
Yeah,
and that used to be a really exclusive club, 3,000 hits and 500 home runs.
Yes.
More people have gone into that club recently, but that used to be only like a handful of guys that have done that.
It's the difficult thing to do. I mean, it's that's a heck of an achievement. That shows you're more of a well-rounded hitter, that you can not only hit home runs but put balls in play. Yeah. So, and in this modern game, it's either hit a home run or a lot of times strike out
or walk.
So, I like to see a guy who can put the bat on the ball, has a strength to put it over the fence, but also, doesn't worry about the home run as much, is willing to get the base hit. So, I think that's a tribute to him. He's a Triple Crown winner, which I guess doesn't carry as much weight as it used to. It should.
Well, don't get me started. We could spend the whole hour on that.
Oh, God. We could talk about baseball stats forever. Yes.
Yeah, the analytic crowd not liking RBIs anymore is just insane. That
it really is.
But,
and there's some things I like about the analytics crowd, and same thing in football. But, some things I like about it, because you're getting some recognition to players who, like offensive linemen, who don't usually get recognition.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the problems we've had with trying to get Mike Ken into the Hall of Fame. I played in that era where you didn't see advanced metrics for offensive linemen.
That's right.
So you have to go off of what people see, and there aren't as many people who saw him play as there used to be. So, that's kind of the thing. And,
But fortunately, I would say for football, and then we got to get to the Falcons here soon, the analytics hasn't just taken over the sport, I guess.
No.
I would say.
Baseball, it has.
Analytics are important. You should use them, but it's not the only thing. They don't replace scouts. They don't replace what you see with your eyes. And in baseball, in a lot of ways, it has. And that's kind of the sad thing. Football,
it really has. It's changed the way baseball's played. Yeah. And I don't think for the better. So change the way managers do their job, and I don't think for the better. The way that they handle their pitchers, the way that they handle strategic situations. And every manager uses metrics to say, hell, Earl Weaver, back with the Orioles, used to use metrics. He had index cards with all the information you could ever want on every one of his players and used it. But, he was still a manager who was in the moment and knew what he wanted to do in each situation. So he didn't let metrics overwhelm his game, but they were a good, they helped him make certain decisions about guys he wanted to play, guys he wanted, guys who should be benched that day. And, that's what you want metrics to do. You don't want to put all your decision-making into metrics.
I guess my last point about the metrics, it's easier to use it in baseball because you have a longer season. You have a big enough sample size where it's going to, hopefully, if you use it all the time, you're hoping that it's more right than it is wrong. Football, it's a much smaller sample, and if you're using analytics, like I think the Cleveland Browns used analytics a few years ago with hiring or acquiring their kickers, or like kickers aren't important because a vast majority of kickers are going to miss 4 or 5 kicks a season, and we're not going to pay top dollar for Justin Tucker to miss 1 kick, 2 kicks. So we're just going to pay, a below average sum, while the Steelers pay a higher sum for Chris Boswell, but our kicker is going to make just as many or miss just as many kicks as Chris Boswell does. Problem with that line of thinking is there's only 16 games, and 1 missed kick could be the difference between making the playoffs and not making the playoffs.
Good.
And if Boswell is better in the clutch than your no-name kicker on Cleveland, Pittsburgh's going to the playoffs and Cleveland's not. That's why analytics doesn't really work. And I guess that is why every single October, and we'll see it again this year, managers use analytics in the playoffs, and it's too small of a sample to do that. You can't use analytics in Game 7. You got to coach with your eyes.
Right. Exactly. And that's the thing. Well, Cleveland hired a bunch of guys with no football background. They had analytics background, but they had no football background. And that didn't help the team at all.
Yeah.
They went too far the other way, and it didn't do anything for the team. They kept losing. So it really made no difference. But
it was week 1 of, I think, maybe 2016, where they could have beat Miami Dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
And the Dolphins ended up being a playoff team that year, but they started very poorly, 1-5, and their only win was against Cleveland in overtime. And Cleveland maybe only had 1 win that year. But they could have won in week 1 if they had made a kick at the end of regulation, and they missed it. And that was because their analytics team said, "Oh, don't spend money on kickers."
Don't spend money on kickers, yeah. Anybody who scores points for your team, you better take a close look at. If you're tasked to put points on the scoreboard, you better make sure you got the right guy back there.
Maybe it's a lesson for our fantasy owners as well. All right, maybe you don't need Justin Tucker, but don't ignore kicker. Right,
exactly. They're going to get you a solid 10 points, 10, 12 points, if you get a decent one.
Yeah.
Don't concentrate on the kicker, but you got to make sure you get somebody who gets the opportunities and takes advantage of the opportunities it gets.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the kicker and defense in fantasy, I look at it as my special teams, which kicker obviously is on special teams, and half of the defense, you can score special teams points with your defense. So, right. But that's you got to even though special teams maybe won't win you a ton of games in the NFL, it can lose you games, and your fantasy defense and kicker can do the same.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's get to the Atlanta Falcons. I'm looking forward to this game tomorrow, partially because I will be going for Sports Illustrated. So check out si.com/NFL/Falcons for my content tomorrow night. Tom will be there in spirit with me. Check out Tom's Twitter account @TJ Pollen during the game tomorrow.
I always tweet during the Falcons games, so you know exactly what I think when it's happening. Right, yeah. And I wear my emotions on my sleeve. That's just the way I am. I'm not a guy. I'm a terrible poker player because I don't have a poker face. What I feel is exactly what you get. That's the way
I can vouch for that.
Okay.
Yeah. So Falcons Browns tomorrow 8 p.m. We'll both be involved in the coverage of the game.
7 p.m.
Is it 7 p.m.?
No, it's my time at 7 p.m.
Oh, okay. Sorry. 8 p.m. For all the people in Chicago that are being watching Falcons Cleveland Browns, it's 7 p.m. your time. So, I mean, what do we want to see from the Falcons tomorrow? And the easy solution to that question is just more of anything. But we really need to see, I think, something more than the first 2 games, just to give the team a little confidence and the fan base a little confidence going into the season. And especially coming on the heels of the report yesterday that Arthur Smith really got into the team and had to motivate them to finish practice hard yesterday. So, I mean, they're going through the motions in practice, it sounds like, and that coming after 2 very lackluster preseason performances. Look, it's preseason. It doesn't mean anything, really. but I would much rather be playing well in preseason and telling the fans, okay, it's the preseason, doesn't mean anything, you're 3-0, than to say, well, don't be concerned that they're 0-3.
You still want to use it as something to give you momentum going into the season. So you can look at something positive. Right now, you got nothing positive to look at.
Yeah.
You really don't. We haven't seen Arthur Smith's offense yet. And we know it's going to work. It worked with Tennessee, but
so do you want to see more of his offense tomorrow? And do you want to see the starters are supposed to play? Do you want to see them play a significant amount of time?
Not significant, but I want to see them going into the second quarter. I want to see what this team actually looks like.
Okay.
What are we going to see out of this team, week one? And I mean, right now we have a good idea. I mean, Matt Ryan, Matt Ryan's going to come out and perform. Calvin Ridley's going to be there. Russell Gage is going to be there. Mike Davis. But,
yeah.
I want to see them actually come out and run the offense on the field in a game situation. Yeah, you've had competitive practices with other teams, but we really haven't seen what these guys can do with this offense. It's a different offense than what Ryan has run before. It's got some different priorities to it. So I want to see them out on the field actually doing it before they get to week one, and then finding out that they have, there are misunderstandings, there are communication problems. Let's get those ironed out now. This is when you want to iron this stuff out.
Absolutely. And I mean, you're still kind of ironing out also your starting offensive line.
Yes.
Nailing down certain positions on that unit. And now, I mean, yeah, we want to see Matt Ryan play more than a quarter tomorrow. The Falcons are also dealing with bringing in a new quarterback this week, A.J. McCarron getting hurt last weekend. And you're now making a very important decision between, do you keep Josh Rosen as your backup? I mean, both guys are probably going to be on the roster, but I mean, who is the guy if Matt Ryan goes down? Is it Josh Rosen or is it Felipe Franks, who spent more time in training camp with the team, but has looked rough around the edges and is an undrafted rookie?
Yeah, he is rough around the edges. He's an undrafted free agent. He is not a guy who you're looking to do anything this year. This guy's a project. I've seen people talking about, well, maybe he should be the number 2. No. And I know we've talked about this before. If your number 2 quarterback is in the game, then you got a lot of problems.
Yeah.
But
right now it's a major
he gives
problem.
You no chance.
I'm just saying I agree with you. And that's why it's a major problem, because as much as I liked Josh Rosen 3 years ago, whenever he came out of the college. Yeah. So I guess I'm still hopeful that he can be something, but he's been in 4 places and none of them felt like he was worth keeping, let alone starting and grooming to be a franchise quarterback. So how much are you counting on him?
Well, at least he's been in the league. He's been on the field, which, is a lot more than Felipe Franks can say.
Yeah.
Felipe Franks has a lot of the raw tools. He can run. He's athletic, good arm, accurate arm. Who knows? He's spent more time scrambling than he has actually dropping back and looking for receivers.
Yeah.
So, that's the thing. Rosen does have field experience. He started. A couple of things with Rosen. Drafted 2018 by the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah.
Now you look at Steve Wilkes was the head coach. He was a new head coach, first time as head coach. And that's the only year he spent as a head coach.
Right.
And he was a defensive coach.
Right.
Byron Leftwich, that was his first year as an offensive coordinator. Now he's made himself a name as offensive coordinator with Tampa.
Yeah.
But
under Bruce Arians.
You're there.
Yeah.
So And he had only been a quarterback's coach up to that. So you look at it, he really didn't have much of a teaching experience in Arizona. And it hurt him because, Arizona decided that they wanted Murray instead. And, that they drafted Murray the next season and cut Rosen completely.
They traded him.
Well, traded, yeah. So Miami, that was Brian Flores' first year as head coach.
Right. Gary commenting that I think this is what you're getting at, Tom, that Rosen hasn't played for a good team. The best team he's played for is probably this Falcons team.
He really hasn't been in a good situation with guys who can show him the ropes, actually teach him the game at quarterback. Chad O'Shea was his offensive coordinator in Miami, and he had been a wide receivers coach before that. That was his first year as offensive coordinator. So you look at what Josh Rosen has had to work with, and yeah, Gary, this is the first time he's actually had Miami Dolphins, Tua. So San Francisco, it's, we really haven't seen him get much opportunity. I don't know how much of that is Josh Rosen, and I don't know how much of that is the situations he's found himself in.
And that's very fair, and that's what I was arguing, after he was traded from Arizona, and even after Miami, because it felt like he really wasn't given a fair shake in Miami, because Flores was caught up in trying to win even as a rookie head coach, and he was starting Ryan Fitzpatrick that year, I believe.
Yeah, Ryan Fitzpatrick, by the way, only had an 88.2 quarterback rating that season. So
Fitzpatrick was on that team, right?
Yeah, Fitzpatrick was on that team. He started the other games that Rosen didn't start.
Yeah. And
as I say, tore apart the league to the point where he had an 88.2 quarterback, passer rating, which for all you Ryan Fitzpatrick first ballot Hall of Famer supporters out there, he hasn't always been. He's not necessarily your franchise quarterback. He only performs like a franchise quarterback in streaks. So let's look at it that way.
Of course, yes. I guess, but the thing for me is he was on Tampa Bay's practice squad last year. Josh Rosen was, and I guess there's certain rules, like anybody can sign a player off of another team's practice squad. So
Yes.
I guess that's what happened. That Tampa Bay wanted him, but didn't have space for him on their roster. But it does make me ask this question. He wasn't worth a roster spot, not on the practice squad, in Tampa Bay's mind. And then San Francisco didn't think he was worth keeping this year, this summer, even as a project. They're not counting on him being a starter. They have Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo, but they didn't even think he was worth keeping in the room. So that just says, and Kyle Shanahan, those other names you said with Arizona, Steve Wilkes and the no-name the coordinator for the Dolphins. Yeah, those guys, I can see that they don't know what they're doing or whatever. They got fired. But Kyle Shanahan knows what he's doing. Kyle Shanahan didn't want to keep Josh Rosen around.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, I know. That's the problem. And that's what causes the question marks to go off in my head. That's where the alarm bells start ringing. Tampa Bay kept Blaine Gabbert, which is just one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever seen.
So what does that say about Josh Rosen?
I know. I mean, Gabbert is kind of my definition of bad quarterback.
Yeah.
If guy has a bad game, he's played Gabbertian. That's how bad he was. He's even on the level of Blaine Gabbert. So, yeah, he couldn't even beat out the immortal Blaine Gabbert for a spot on the roster. So, yeah, and that's the thing. Gabbert had more. Gabbert did have experience. He's been to, I don't know. I'm not a Gabbert fan. Let's see, Gremlin. Every team Rosen been on, the team took a rookie quarterback. Yeah, that's right. We kind of.
And Caleb disagrees with us. He thinks the Cardinals were way better. We're talking about the Cardinals 3 years ago.
3 years ago, before Kyler Murray got there.
Right.
So, and they were not a good team. They had David Johnson at running back, and
got hurt in the first game, didn't he?
Huh?
Was that the year David Johnson got hurt in the first game?
No. Johnson played the full season, and he still had Fitzpatrick, at wide receiver. Well, but yeah, that was not a good team. It was not a very good team, and didn't do it.
They were the worst. They had the worst record in the league. They picked number one. They picked Kyler Murray.
Right. They went 3-11 that year, and Steve Wilkes was fired after that one season. Byron Leftwich went on to Tampa Bay, and none of those coaches were there. They spent one season there, failed utterly, and what is Rosen supposed to do? He's in a situation where I guess the Cardinals decided he wasn't their guy after all with the new regime that came in and treated him.
Well, you had his name is slipping my mind. The head coach of the Cardinals now came from Texas Tech.
Yeah,
Kingsbury. He wanted to run, a Big 12 style offense.
Yes,
and Kyler Murray came from the Big 12, so that was perfect. That's what he wanted, and that was why
Rosen did not fit his plans.
Right, and that's why I was still a Rosen supporter after that, and even after his time in Miami. And look, is he worth taking a flyer on? Yeah, I think he is.
Sure, why not?
Arthur Smith turned around Ryan Tannehill's career, who was I think they both went number 8 overall, if I'm not mistaken. So
I think Rosen I think was 11th.
Rosen was 11th. Maybe it was Josh Allen who went 8.
Yes, it's Josh Allen who went.
I was thinking of him. So top 15 quarterbacks had rough starts to their careers, and Smith took Tannehill, made him into what he is now. And if what helped Tannehill was putting him with Derrick Henry, putting him with an A.J. Brown. So maybe if Josh Rosen is with, Calvin Ridley, has a decent running game, better running game than the Falcons have had the last couple of years. If he's given the opportunity, if Matt Ryan goes down, maybe he can do something more than what he's done. I hope he does.
Rumlin says Rosen 110. Okay.
I hope he does. I hope he becomes the top 10 pick, 10th overall that he was a few years ago. But
You'd like to see
I have my doubts when 4 teams, and especially the last 2 that had competent offensive minds there, and didn't find him worth keeping.
Right. Yeah, I'm not arguing that, Dave.
Okay.
I'm with you on that. And that's why I say he's a big question mark. From what I've been reading this week, there's a lot of people who cover the Falcons who write about the Falcons who maybe wonder if the Atlanta's still going to be in the market for a backup quarterback after all the roster cutdowns.
I think that's a very good question. I guess I'll ask you. Do you think they should be? Should they still add another quarterback?
I don't know if they have the space to add another quarterback. They are up. It depends on what they do with their final cutdowns, but they are really up against it.
Are you talking about salary cap or roster?
Yeah, salary cap.
Yeah.
I don't know if they can afford a real backup. So it's going to be tough to say.
Well, I know one.
And you're not going to have much that's going to be out there that's going to be worth your time. Who's going to be available?
Well, I know one guy that's probably going to be available is Josh Dobbs from the Steelers. Steelers are going to keep Mason Rudolph.
Does that excite you?
I think he's better than Josh Rosen.
Okay. With the Bears, you got Andy Dalton, Justin Fields. Will Knowles still be playing for the Bears? Is he going to be a third? He's probably going to be cut. So does he end up in Atlanta? Yeah, that's always a good question too. I mean, there's a lot of guys who might be available, but I mean, they just don't turn you on. They don't do much for you. Nick Foles. I'm sorry, Nick Foles. Doesn't. After the way he played for the Bears last year, does that excite you as a backup quarterback? Well, he did win, and he did finish off the Eagles' World Championship season. After Carson Wentz got hurt, but
I think he's a perfect backup. I don't know if the Falcons could afford him, but
I don't think the Falcons can afford him.
But the problem with Nick Foles is when he becomes the starter, and for a long period of time. If he's a backup and he just has to fill in, he's done well. But if he has to be like when the Jaguars named him the starter, or when the Eagles started him when after they won the Super Bowl, his magic ran out.
Yes.
So Gremlin says Atlanta and other teams knew Minshew was going to be traded. He was just traded for a 6th round to Philly, and we didn't pull the trigger. Yeah, that's a good point. I wanted to bring that up a little bit later in the show because that's worth discussing. The Falcons are playing the Eagles in week 1. I don't think they're going to see Minshew, but does he make an appearance? I don't know what the Eagles are doing at quarterback.
Jalen Hurts is going to be the quarterback.
Yeah, but they benched Jalen Hurts in the middle of a game they were leading last year. So,
at the end of the season where they were going nowhere. I mean, they were buried by them. So
that's true. Should they have traded for Minshew?
Again,
talking about?
From a player standpoint, sure, but you got to look at this team, and as much as they say they're primed to win this year, it's tough to give up draft choices right now for the quality backup like Minshew would be. I don't know if this team needs a Gardner Minshew as your backup quarterback, and I don't think they can afford him because I think they're only going to be million under the cap by the time the final roster is solidified. So, you
think Terry Fontenot is looking at it as, look, if Matt Ryan goes down, no matter what, we're done.
We got nothing.
And we got this former top 10 pick and quarterback now in Josh Rosen. If we acquire another quarterback, he's our 3rd string and he doesn't get to practice. At least he gets and if he stays the backup, Matt Ryan, I haven't mentioned this yet. Matt Ryan has only missed 1 game since 2009.
Yeah, that's right.
Very reliable. Backup quarterback isn't really a huge need in Atlanta because of Ryan's durability. But so do you look at it that way and you say Ryan's probably going to play every game? If Ryan goes down, we're not going anywhere anyway. And this way, Rosen can be our backup, practice every week, and we get a year of assessment of him playing against our number 1 defense.
Yeah.
Is that how you're looking at it?
That's exactly how I'm looking at it. I mean, you really have – you can't afford a veteran backup unless you're going to get him on a very favorable deal. Somebody who's just trying to get back into the league. And is that any better than what you have with Josh Rosen? I don't think so. Felipe Franks is going to be on the practice squad. Felipe Franks, may have all the tools. I've seen a lot of people say, oh, he should be the number 2. No, he shouldn't be the number 2. Come on. Get your head out of your posteriors. This is a guy who has raw skills, but is not ready to go on the field as an NFL quarterback yet. May never be ready to go on the field as an NFL quarterback. At least Josh Rosen, he has the bona fides of an NFL quarterback. He hasn't shown it yet, but at least has enough qualifications behind him that says you can put him on the field as your second.
I'm not arguing with you about whether it's Josh Rosen or Felipe Franks at number 2. It's Rosen. Based on what I've seen from Franks the last couple games. And I think our audience also agrees.
Thanks, Archangel. Yes, you're right. He's not ready to play.
And it seems like we're getting a couple comments that people are excited about what we're talking about is, Rosen, it might be perfect for Smith's offense, and that Smith took the reclamation project of Tannehill turned him into a good quarterback. So hopeful that they can do that with Rosen. And I'll go back to the point that I just made a little bit ago, that you don't want to, if you bury Rosen on your practice squad, then you could lose him like Tampa Bay did.
Yes.
But are there better backup quarterbacks that they could have than Josh Rosen? I think my answer is still yes. Gardner Minshew would be better. Josh Dobbs would be better. But if your goal isn't to have the best backup that you can, because A, you can't afford it, or B, you're not worried about it because of Matt Ryan's health, or C, you wanted to see Josh Rosen practice every day, then that's those are things that you're weighing in your decision.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know if, and as I say, final cut downs, I don't know if you're going to get much better than him right now. You might get, again, Archangel made the point that there's a lot of washed up quarterbacks out there. And yeah, a lot of them are going to find backup spots too. But do you want one here? It doesn't make any sense. You might as well see what Arthur Smith can do with this quarterback. He bailed out. He kind of salvaged Ryan Tannehill. Can he do the same for Rosen? If Rosen can't succeed here with Smith as head coach, then you got your answer about whether he's going to be an NFL quarterback. He's not. All right, this is the one time where you're going to see what he can do. He's with a coach who showed that he can develop a quarterback, knows what to do with a quarterback, and play to a quarterback's strengths. So, and if, we'll find out if Rosen has any strengths to be played to. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Sounds good. Staying at quarterback and moving around the league, you mentioned the Saints at the top of the show not playing their final preseason game. They named Jameis Winston their starter already before the last preseason week. We, I think, talked about that briefly last week. Rosen never backed up a QB as good as Matt Ryan. Let's be honest. That's very true, too. Maybe he can learn a little bit from Matt Ryan, hopefully.
That's very true, Archangel. Good point.
So Winston, the starter in New Orleans, we discussed last week. You were very critical of Sean Payton, still thinking that Taysom Hill was in this competition. And I think other sports writers came forward and basically agreed with you this week and said that this was ridiculous that it lasted as long as it did with Winston versus Hill.
But you see, those reporters didn't want to go out on the limb and say so until afterwards.
Yeah, but that's because they actually have to talk to Sean Payton every single day. You don't have to.
So what? You're going to talk to Sean Payton. What is Sean Payton going to tell you? Use your eyes.
Well, he won't tell you anything if you piss him off.
Yeah, I'm not a reporter. I'm sorry. That's the way it is. You've been trained this way. You know how that works. Yeah, I just get my opinion.
Unfortunately, unfortunately it's the nature of the beast. You got to report on the team, but you can't sever ties that are going to affect how you report on the team.
Now, Jameis Winston, I mean, even though he is the only quarterback on the Saints roster, I might be the only quarterback in the, I wouldn't say prestigious, 30-30 club among NFL quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Major leagues in baseball, that's good. You want to be in the 30 club. Football, no, not so good. Not for a quarterback.
I would still say it's prestigious, at least difficult to do,
Very difficult. Might never be done again. Come on.
He had 5,000 yards, too.
Yeah, I know. He had
that season.
Guy was filling the air with footballs. Half of them went to his guys. Went to the other guys. So I mean,
what do you think the Saints can do with Winston as their quarterback?
Oh God, I think Peyton will help rein him back in. Bruce Arians likes to fill the air with footballs, and that's the thing. Winston maybe tried to do too much under Bruce Arians, tried to get the ball in the spots where he wasn't capable of putting the ball. I think he'll be more under control under Sean Payton. He's got Alvin Kamara as a running back, So he's got a solid running back with him. And I'd like to see what he does. He's got, a good receiving core. Let's see what Sean Payton can do with him. I don't think he's going to be 30 for 30 or 30-30 again. But yeah, let's see what he can throw for 5,000 yards. Sean Payton doesn't throw the ball up that much. Winston will go downfield, and maybe that's good for New Orleans offense because I don't think they've gone downfield near as much as they used to when Breeze was in his prime.
Yeah. I think Breeze's arm was not the same last year.
No. So Winston at least gives you the option of the deep ball again. So we'll see how the Saints run their offense in week one. It's going to be interesting to see what Peyton can do with him. And again, if you're a quarterback and you fail under Sean Payton, you're really not going anywhere else. Of course, Sean Payton has only had Drew Brees as his quarterback. So, is he really the quarterback whisperer? I mean, is he? We don't know. Drew Brees didn't need much whispering. He was, a great quarterback on his own. So we'll see. I'm interested to run their offense with Jameis Winston. I think they can be above 500 team with Jameis Winston. I think Winston has a lot of the tools to be a quality quarterback. You got to keep Jameis Winston from losing a game for you as much as he can win a game for you.
True.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
So.
New Orleans, Larry Orange has Green Bay in week one. That is a 4 East Coast time. I have to specify my time zones now. A 4:25 start, week one.
Yeah. So going up against Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. And the Falcons won't see the Saints. I think this was true last year too. They won't see the Saints for the first time until November. November 7th is their trip to New Orleans. And then they host New Orleans on January 9th, week 18. The new week 18 in the NFL schedule.
Yeah, God. But I do like the way the NFL sets up the schedule where the last week is against
division opponent.
Division opponents.
Yeah, I do like that too.
A lot of stuff. I like the way they set that up.
I don't think I've heard anyone say they don't like that. That was a very good decision by the NFL.
However, not playing the Saints till November, that's a little rough. The thing is, the important game is they're going to be at Tampa Bay week 2. That's going to be the rough one. We're going to see what they can do against a quality defense and a quality offense. Even if Brady doesn't do this year what he did last year, and let's face it, the guy's 43, 44 years old now.
Yeah.
And at some point you just can't keep expecting to put the ball where you want it as fast as you want it. Your reaction time does slow down the older you get. And at some point he's going to fall off. Does he fall off this year? Who knows? But other than Brady, you still got a tough wide receiver group in Tampa. You got a tough running back, and you got a damn good defense. So everything else, Brady's the question mark. Can Brady reproduce what he did last year, or is he finally going to be on the downside of his career this year? Because at some point, age catches up to all quarterbacks. I mean, no matter how good you are, it catches up to you.
You're right, but I mean, it should have caught up to Tom Brady like 5 years ago. So
it should have.
It just
statistically, yes, because no other NFL quarterback has done what Brady has done after 40 years old.
Yeah,
only Brett Favre. Brett Favre was the only quarterback to make the playoffs after 40 years old, and almost took that team to the Super Bowl. That Vikings team.
Right.
Warren Moon guided the Vikings, I think, to a 500 record after 40 years old. But no other. He's the only, other than Brett Favre, Brady's the only other quarterback who took a team to the playoffs after 40 years old, and he actually won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And I'll say he won that Super Bowl as much on Tampa's defense all he really had to do was take care of the ball, and you didn't have to make big plays. Just keep moving the ball.
He won multiple Super Bowls after 40, though.
Yeah, that's true. Thinking about it, yes, I know. You're right. So it's going to be interesting to see. But yeah, that's going to be a measuring stick for the Falcons. Can they, how good are they against a legitimate solid team?
Yeah.
And we're going to get a good idea for that in week 2.
Falcons playing the Buccaneers in week 2 at 4:05 Eastern time, September 19th. The Saints play the Panthers. So we'll have an all NFC South day on September 19th.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be interesting to see. That's going to be a fun one. Looking at the Falcons schedule, Eagles, Buccaneers, Giants, Washington football team, and Jets. That's a schedule you can open up pretty strong against.
I've felt that way, all off season, that they have a fairly favorable schedule all season long. And I want to give a shout out to our watchers right now. We're getting a lot of interaction after a quiet first 20, 25 minutes or so, getting a lot of comments. Thank you for sending them in. Keep them coming. And if you have any fantasy questions, I said this at the top of the show, you maybe have joined us since then. If you have any fantasy football questions for your drafts coming up next week, we're going to go heavy fantasy football next Saturday. But if you have any questions for a draft coming up before next Saturday, let us know. We can answer them before we wrap up here in the next 10, 15 minutes.
Dave is your fantasy guru.
I try to help out any way I can. But yeah, back to the Falcons schedule. Very, very favorable. Very favorable. We talked about, only having the 7 home games, which really, really stinks. One of the home games getting eaten up by a trip to London. And it just so happens that this is the year all NFC teams have 9 road games and 8 home games. And one of those home games is in a different continent, just not particularly fair by the NFL on that one.
So we'll see how well Falcons fans travel.
Or how many there are in London.
Yes.
We'll see that too.
Right.
But yeah, the opponents they play, the quarterbacks that they're going to face. I mean, they're going to have Jalen Hurts, Daniel Jones, Ryan
Jones, one of my favorite quarterbacks in the league.
Right.
Ryan Fitzpatrick and Zach Wilson.
Yep.
Who you open against? And
even after the bye, you got Tua, inexperienced.
But Tua's looked pretty good in the preseason.
Well, because he played the Falcons last week. Yeah, he looked great.
Yeah, boy, that's something else. Going into the final preseason game, I've seen some 53-man rosters that look interesting. Other than quarterback, there's some spots on this team. Who do you think needs to really show themselves tomorrow to make this team? Because the final cuts are you got to be down to your 53-man roster by Tuesday.
I think I just go back to what we were talking about last week at running back and wide receiver. I was a little bit sad to see Javon Hawkins get cut this past week. I thought he was and he got picked up immediately. So
yes, he did.
And by a good team. So he's now in Tennessee. And I mean, I'm not going to second guess Arthur Smith's decision there, but I just thought Hawkins played well from what I saw.
Please.
And I'm disappointed he's not going to be on the Falcons team.
Gremlin looked good in week 1 against the Bears twos, and the Bears have some pretty impressive twos. And he still looked
You're responding to Gremlin?
Yeah, responding to Gremlin.
Tua
looked good against our threes. Tua played against the Bears pretty well in week 1 against the Bears 2s and 3s. So, and the Bears have an impressive group of 2s and 3s.
Yeah, I want to see him do it against 1s.
So do I.
Whatever team it is.
I agree. But
we'll have a whole month to see Tua before he plays the Falcons. We'll see how he's playing in September.
See how he's doing, yeah.
Gremlin makes a good point. Huntley did outplay Hawkins, and
you're right.
That's kind of what I'm getting at. That they have. Your question was who has to step up and play well? It's the running backs and wide receivers, because there's a lot of them that are playing well, and there's limited spots for the Falcons.
I think Quadre Olson is still on the bubble. I don't know if he played his way off the bubble onto the team last week. It's going to be interesting to see. I think, wide receiver, does Tajay Sharp actually make the squad?
We've talked about him. We've liked him. But, I mean, is there a spot for him?
I like Tajay. As I said, I've liked Tajay Sharp ever since he came into the league. Yeah. I think he's a quality receiver. I don't think he's gotten as many opportunities as some, but I do think Tajay Sharp could be a positive for the Falcons.
I think so.
Chris Rowland looks like he's going to be the punt returner. So, there's a guy on, a wide receiver. He's taking up a wide receiver slot. That's going to cut the number of wide receivers you can keep.
And I brought this up yesterday, last week. But Cordell Patterson's taking up a running back spot.
Yes, he is.
And he's going to make the team.
Yeah, he's going to make the team, right?
He's a specialist. So.
And he's listed at running back. He's going to do a lot of different things for this team.
Of course, yeah.
But, right, exactly.
But it's just another spot that's being eaten up really by a specialist and worth the spot, of course. I'm not saying that he's not, but it makes it that much harder to try and sneak a Hawkins onto the roster.
Right. Yeah, so, I mean, you got Deontay Foreman and Caleb Huntley. The fight's going to be between them for that final roster spot, and we'll see how that goes. Defense is looking pretty solid as I look at on Falcons.com, on their AtlantaFalcons.com. Not a lot of really I don't know how much competition we're going to see because Kendall Sheffield's hurt. He might end up getting cut. So that might open up a spot for one of the younger cornerbacks. So we'll see about that. Who's going to be your starter? Is it going to be Isaiah Oliver, Fabian Moreau? Oliver has been the other been on the other side. Has he earned the starting spot back again, or is he going to be all? It's going to be interesting to see. So, one guy I think is going to make the team, not necessarily for his play on the field, but let's see, Terrace Lane. I think.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
Terrace.
I agree.
There wasn't space. Yeah,
no, wasn't space for him on this roster, and the nice thing is, I think Smith knew that and cut him loose early so he could get find a roster spot somewhere else. And sometimes coaches will do that for a player. Not necessarily that he's not good enough to be in the league,
right?
But somebody who is not going to fit your offense or your defense, and you let go because you want to give them a shot to make another roster with one game still left. Mm-hmm. Give them a chance to show somebody else what they can do. Tight end, I think John Rain. You haven't seen much of him on the field as a tight end. I think John Rain's going to make this team as a special teams player because he has popped on special teams to me. So I'll be interesting to see if that comes down to being a determining factor for his roster spot. Because I think you could very well see John Rain on the final team.
We got about 5 minutes left in the show. I want to ask you one final question before we wrap up. What do the Falcons need to do tomorrow? What do they need to accomplish in your mind in order to have a successful final third preseason game? The win and loss obviously doesn't mean anything, but this game is very important, I think, for Atlanta's psyche to get some work done. What do they need to do to make it a successful night tomorrow?
I think they got to look like an NFL football team. They haven't looked like that so far. They got the coach, they got the quarterback, they got a roster full of players who are quality. I want to see some of that come together tomorrow. I want to see the ones actually go out and do some things. I want to see some of Arthur Smith's offense executed, not just in theory going into the game. I want to see some of it executed. I want to see that the Falcons at least have some of this under their hands, that they, that Ryan has an understanding of what Smith wants to do and can deliver. And I say, can he deliver the ball? Yes, he can. He's, this guy's a first ballot Hall of Famer. So you know what you got in Ryan, but
you want to see him in the new offense.
I want to see him in the new offense, and I want to see that offense move the ball. I want to see that number one offensive line, or who's projected to be the number one offensive line. Can they move the football? Can they block? We haven't seen anybody block yet. Guys are going to make the final roster on the offensive line, not through what they've done in the preseason, but because they don't have anybody else. At least they have reputations. They really haven't blocked.
Yeah.
So I want to see what a quarterback in Atlanta's offense can do when he gets some time to run that offense. I say what you want about McCarron, and I know a lot of people didn't have very good opinions of him anyway, and I agree. I don't think McCarron's a quality quarterback anyway. He's a good backup, but he really didn't have much of a chance. He's not an athletic quarterback, and that offensive line needed an athletic quarterback for McCarron to actually have any kind of a chance to show what he can do. Yeah. And, you got to get the ones out there. You got to see the ones at least a couple of series. I think that'll help Atlanta fans feel better.
Yeah.
About this team going into week one. I think Falcons fans know that they have, the Falcons kind of know what they have as far as players. That's the thing. But I think Falcons fans are really, going in, Falcons fans know this can be a good team, whether it's a playoff team that remains to be seen. It should be a competitive team. But we haven't seen that yet. And I think it would do a lot for the Falcons fans' psyche if they can go out there and actually show that they can do the things they need to do in this final exhibition game. You're playing a decent team, Cleveland Browns. I mean, and this isn't your father's Cleveland Browns. This is a Cleveland Browns team that can play. Made playoffs last year.
Right.
So I want to see what they can do against a quality team, and run the offense. And let's see. I also want to see Mayfield.
Yeah.
Mayfield has not impressed me at all so far this year. We'll see how he comes along, but he's got a long way to go to get his Archangel. Technically, yes, 9-8, 10-7. I think the Falcons are primed for a good start based on the schedule, but again, you want to go into the season with a little confidence. I think that carries over with the players too. I think the players want to feel good going into the season. Your players don't want to go into the season off a game that they just had. You can't.
Right.
Then you're starting to put. I know NFL players are always on top competitively. They're always going to be giving their best effort, but you're going to have that little thought in the back of their mind saying, well, it has a lot to do with confidence rolling into the regular season. And I would like to see it, even if they don't win the game. I want to see some quality. I want to see some things happening in this game that is going to carry forward to the regular season.
Absolutely. I agree. I think you and our listeners brought up both the offensive and defensive lines, and I think that is key. Gremlin brought up the starters playing a whole half, and I think I would like to see that. I would like to see Matt Ryan out there for majority of the first half, if not the whole half. And to your point about Cleveland being a good team, I will say that as favorable as the regular season schedule is for the Falcons, the preseason schedule was a bit difficult. They played 3 teams that won 10 games last year.
Yes, it is.
So they're playing some tough teams. That's a good way to get better.
And playing tough teams without showing their want.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why the 2 games have gone so poorly. And hopefully tomorrow, with the starters in for at least a half, the first half will be much better, is what I'm hoping. Thanks for tuning in. This Saturday, we'll be back at noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central Time.
I love seeing all these comments coming in. You guys are great. I really appreciate all the feedback you guys give during the show. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun doing it when we see all that.
Absolutely. And we'll be back again. We're here every Saturday, noon Eastern Time. But check out the rest of the channel, Atlanta Sports Unlimited on YouTube. Give us a subscription. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. You can interact with us during the game tomorrow night at TJ Pollen, at DM Holcomb.
Yeah, at TJ Pollen on Twitter. Right. I'll be putting my opinions out there. So.
Yep. Enjoy the game. We'll see you next Saturday.
Have a great week.